Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said? Did you hear me? Did you hear what I said?
Welcome to Did You Hear Me with Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd. And now, here's your host, Eric Michaels and Mike Lee.
We're very excited to welcome to the Eric and Mike podcast, the legendary, the one, the only, the infamous Sheriff Grady Judd. Hello, sir. How are you?
Listen to all the people that showed up. My goodness, how are y'all doing?
We are great. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Oh, I'm glad to be with you.
It's good to finally be able to sit down with you. You know, I mean, after that pandemic, you would always call into the radio station, and then we weren't able to be in the same room, and now here we are finally getting to sit down and talk to you again.
For the first time in years.
For the first time in years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not over the phone. We're sitting here face to face in your beautiful studio. This is awesome.
And the first time that Mike and I haven't been in handcuffs when you've talked to us.
That's true. That's
So,
true.
we've got that going for us. So you've got a brand new something to add on to your business card, and the fact that you are now part of the State Immigration Enforcement Council.
Yes.
So tell a little bit about what your job is going to be and what this council, what their goals and outlook for this council is.
Sure. The council will report to the Immigration Board. Mm-hmm. And the Immigration Board is made up of the governor and the cabinet members. The council has 4 sheriffs and 4 police chiefs. And according to law, one of the 4 sheriffs has to be the chairman. That is to be appointed by the board, and we're waiting to hear from the board which of the 4 of us will be the chairman. I have supported Sheriff Gualtieri, a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Sheriff Gualtieri has taken a real interest in this immigration. In fact, I've worked with him back to 2017 when he worked with the federal government to create what they call the WSO, the Warrant Service Officer. You have to have special authorization in order to serve warrants, civil warrants, for ICE, Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Mm-hmm. So I know that probably the subject matter expert in the United States is Bob Gualtieri. In fact, often he coaches and counsels with the federal ICE people because he knows the law better than a lot of them do.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, we're going to make up the council, and it's our job to liaison with ICE and with the federal government, and also to make recommendations to the board. Now, there's going to be some state grant money, so that's one of the many tasks that we'll do, is dividing up the state grant money to the different law enforcement agencies that help ICE enforce the immigration laws. So we're kind of the conduit to work with the federal government to tell them, hey, here's how you have to change this rule or this regulation, and to work with all the state law enforcement officers to say, look, this is what your agency needs to do in order to be able to help the federal government. And then we advise the board, and ultimately the board has the final decision. It's going to be an interesting job, and on occasion a challenging and frustrating job, because we're trying to melt federal rules, federal law with state rules and state law. So we look forward to the challenge, and it is an honor. It is a true honor. Senate President Ben Albritton recommended me to be one of his representatives. So I'm grateful for that.
Now, you're not going to go door to door and bang on it and say, show me your papers or we're kicking you out, right?
I think that's everybody's first question. That's the first thing they imagine, is that there's going to be people knocking down doors and dragging them out of the country. So that's not what's happening.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's a great observation from y'all. What's happening, I call it the naysayers, or those that are against this immigration enforcement, are telling all these horrible stories and scaring the immigrants to death.
Right.
And that's so unfortunate. Here's what we know. There, depending on the numbers you believe, there's someplace between 11 million and 24 million people in this country illegally. Mm-hmm. Now, you set that aside for a second. You understand that the vast majority of them are not violators of the law, other than the fact they violated the law to get here. They work hard, they pay taxes, their kids are in school, they go to church on Sunday, and they're here for the American dream. They just didn't follow the rules. But here's the priority. There are illegal immigrants in this country committing violent crime, rape, robbery, murder.
Yeah.
They're the top priority to get out of this country. The second group of people to get out of this country is other law violations. So if you're here illegally committing crime, violating the law, you got to go. The third priority to this issue is those that already have a federal warrant of deportation, which means they've been through the system and the federal government has said, hey, you've had your due process, you came here illegally, and now we're going to deport you back to your home country. Depending on the numbers you hear, there's about 1.4 million people like that.
In the country or in the state of Florida?
In the country.
In the country, okay.
So you've got, so I tell folks that if you're here in this country illegally and you're behaving, you're doing what's right, there is so much low-hanging fruit that we've got to move out of this country. You'll be old and dead before they
by the
get to
time
you.
we finally get there, yeah.
So, but the reality is, the problem you have, you could get caught up with some of these illegal people that commit crime, and you could be collateral damage. But the answer is, are we going door to door, knocking on doors? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Are we going into churches and schools and hospitals? Let me tell you how that got started. Federal agents, FBI agents, DEA agents can make arrests wherever the federal law leads them, right?
Right.
Well, President Biden forbid ICE of using their federal authority in a school, in a church, or in a hospital. And what President Trump has said, wait a minute, you've got the authority to make an arrest in a school, in a church, in a hospital, if that need be. That doesn't mean we're going there and collecting people as they come into or out of a school, a church, or a hospital. He simply said you have the same authority there that you do any place else in the United States of America.
But you're not going to be checking green cards as they're coming out of Sunday service.
Absolutely not.
I mean, it just seems it almost seems ridiculous to have that as an idea.
Well,
that's why
they're checking out at Publix. Can I see? Yeah.
Yeah, they're passing the bowl around.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the federal government said that as well.
Yeah.
I've heard Homan, who is the immigration czar for ICE, for the DHS, say, we're not doing that. That people are making that up. So at the end of the day, I encourage people that are here illegally, you need to start taking steps to get here legally, because that's treated as a civil event by the federal government. But it progresses depending on what you come here illegally to do. And what we see with the open borders, they've come here with literally tons of fentanyl that's killed, 250,000 people in this country. They come here with methamphetamine, human traffickers. That is a non-starter for anyone.
I think you're right. I think it's important for people to realize that you are in the job of law enforcement.
That's right.
So if they ask you to help enforce these laws, these are laws that are already in place. Who are you to say no? I mean, that's your job, right? So you're joining this because it's your duty.
It's my job to help another law enforcement officer when they ask for help, and that's what we're going to do in the state of Florida. But here's what's important that I tell everyone. There is a need for capacity. There's only 2,000 beds in the state of Florida for illegal immigrants at this time, and most of them are full. The federal government doesn't have capacity. So they've got to create the capacity for us to even get what I call the low-hanging fruit, the obvious.
Yeah.
And that's going to take a lot of work. In addition to that, and I've said this on national television, and they changed it and I don't know if it's as a result or not, those ICE warrants for deportation weren't even in our computer system where normal law enforcement officers at the state and local level could see that. They're just now putting 700,000 of those in our system. So if you've got those 700,000 warrants and you've got the guys committing crime illegally, where is the federal government going to put them? We can't keep them over 48 hours in our jail according to law. ICE has got to pick them up, or you've got to let them go by law. So we've got a lot of work to do on the council in order to work out these nuances. But at the end of the day, it's about keeping people safe, and it's about telling the world you've got to respect our laws. You can't come here illegally.
I got a garage and a spare couch if you need. So you can just let me know. I'll house a couple for you if you like.
Yeah.
They may be calling you.
He's single right now, so he's desperate.
Yeah, for any attention.
Right.
What do you say to the critics that say, you're law enforcement, you need to be concentrating on what's going on the streets and not be immigration officers?
Yeah, the critics are nuts. First off, they're here. Not only are they here illegally, but they are violating the law, and that is who we are focusing.
Right.
If they're here illegally, that's a civil issue, and that's between them and the federal government, and is of no concern to us. But if they're here illegally violating the law, then they are of concern to us, and that's what we're doing.
And I feel like, in all honesty, if they're saying you need to be concentrating on what's going on in the streets, that is going on in the streets, especially when it comes to the drug issue that you're talking about with the fentanyl.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some people just don't understand. Some of these things they say it out of ignorance, not out of anger, or they just don't know. But when somebody comes across this border illegally, that's a violation, a civil violation. But when you come here peddling your fentanyl that's killing people, peddling your methamphetamine, having your organized criminals come here and break into homes, human trafficking, no one is for that.
Right.
I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box, I'll admit that. So please talk to me like I'm 4 years old, okay? To me, when you talk about illegal immigrants, I immediately think of Texas coming over the border, coming in from Canada. What kind of immigration issue do we have here in Florida and specifically Polk County?
The same exact one that they have in Texas at the border. Every community is really a border community. When you think that there is between 11 and 24 million illegal immigrants, they don't stay at the border. They don't stay in Arizona or New Mexico or California or Texas. They're all over the United States, and many of them are committing, not all of them, not the majority of them, but many of them are committing some pretty horrific crimes.
I think that's where, personally, I've been misled in that you're not going after the big, awful majority of people that are here working hard, maybe are working towards becoming a citizen, which takes a long time. You're not going after those folks. You're going after the really bad guys.
Absolutely. That is exactly who we're going after, is the bad people. Like I said, if you're here illegally, you've committed a civil violation according to the federal government.
Okay.
Our goal is not you. You're not on the radar screen. Our goal is those that are here illegally and committing crime, or you have a warrant, a federal deportation warrant that the government has issued. And that's not the vast majority of the people that are here.
So what is your ultimate goal with this? What would you really like, if this was Grady's world, what would you like to see?
I would like to see those that are here illegally committing crime out of the country, period. Those that are here illegally, that are working hard, paying taxes, have their kids in school, going to church on Sunday, living the American life, they're here illegally, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But create a path for them. Say, okay, you come down and sign up, and you've got 5 years to do this, 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 and this. At the end of the 5 years, if you've not done all of these things toward being a citizen, you got to go. At the end of 5 years, we're going to give you a card that's good for 5 more years. And you've got to do this, 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 and this, and then we'll make you a citizen at the end of 10 years. If you don't do that, at the end of 10 years, you got to go. That way, those that have come here illegally,
Mm-hmm.
but they've come here for the same reason our forefathers came here, just to better themselves and their families, they have a path. The criminals are gone, and those folks have an opportunity to live the American dream.
Now, for those of us like myself who don't really fully understand the path to citizenship, is what you just described, is that currently the way it's supposed to work? Or is this Grady Judd's, this is the ideal, if Grady was in charge, this is how it would be
That's
done?
my world. I have no idea. I know it's onerous in order to get to the point where you can be a citizen of the United States, as it should be.
Yeah.
But what I really am concerned about is not the person that came across the border illegally that has now committed a civil infraction, as the federal government recognizes. We don't know who else come across the border.
Yeah.
We don't know how many international dangerous terrorists have come here. We don't know how many people China has sent here illegally in order to tap into our computer systems. We don't know what we don't know, and that's our concern.
That's a great way to put it, actually, and a scary way to think about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's one of my fiance's favorite sayings is we don't know if we don't know, you know, and it is kind of scary. I'm sorry to like kind of derail this, but there is a new show out that stars Robert De Niro, and it's called 0 Day, and it's almost exactly about what you just described. With they've sent people over to take over our computer systems, and all of a sudden subways are crashing, you know, and trains are being derailed because of these horrible things that could be. And obviously that's why all of these laws and these cabinets and committees are created, to try to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Quite frankly, the day-to-day issue is not the person who came across the border illegally that wants to work. The last time you drove past a strawberry field, did you see a white guy picking strawberries? Did you see a black guy picking strawberries?
Right. Yeah.
Did you see an Asian guy picking strawberries? No. You saw a group of hardworking Hispanics that are actually running back and forth to do that. People have this image that that's the only people coming across the border illegally, or the wonderful construction people. They think that's the only people coming across the border illegally. No.
Right.
If that were the problem, we wouldn't have a problem. Those folks are adding to the quality of this country.
Yeah.
That's not what we're after. What we're after is the criminal, and what we're after is the person who has been snuck into or smuggled into this country, the victim of human trafficking, the terrorist, the person that's here embedded now, that we don't know who they are or where they are, to upset our way of life.
Well, thank you for your time. We're going to wrap things up on this subject, and we appreciate it as always, Grady, for you joining us. Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd.
Glad to be with you.